Roughly 2 years ago, I made a decision that turned out to be one of the worst of my life. I became involved in a brief affair with a man who had been hired to work on our home. It lasted only about a week, and during that time, I didn't even realize I had become pregnant. Yet, throughout everything, my feelings for Chris never wavered. Even with the guilt weighing me down, my love for him remained constant. In an attempt to hold on to what we had, I made an effort to be more emotionally available and attentive. I stayed committed to my role as both wife and mother, going through the motions while internally battling the shame of my mistake. I was trying desperately to bury the truth under normalcy, pretending nothing had gone wrong. But the turning point came unexpectedly. It happened one afternoon when I heard my son crying after I had just laid him down for a nap. For reasons I couldn't explain, that cry pierced through me in a way it never had before. It shook something deep inside. In that moment, the weight of what I had been risking finally hit me. My child needed his mother. Chris needed his wife. I realized then that I couldn't continue down that path of deception. Looking at the man I'd been involved with, I felt a wave of clarity. It had to end. I struggled to speak but managed to say, "It's over. I can't do this anymore." He stared at me, clearly blindsided. "What are you talking about?" he asked. But I didn't waver. "I mean it. I don't want this. Please leave." He stood there, stunned, apologizing and insisting he never meant to hurt me. But I was already too focused on my family, on saving what still could be saved. I didn't want to hear anything more. A few weeks after ending the affair, I discovered I was pregnant. I didn't hesitate to believe the baby was Chris's. The timing matched what I believed was a safe window in my cycle, and I had only been with the other man twice. I convinced myself there was no other possibility. But deep down, I've come to understand that all it takes is a single time. That realization has haunted me ever since. When our daughter arrived, I tried to erase the affair from my mind. She was absolutely precious. From her very first moments, it was clear she adored Chris. Her face would light up at the sight of him, and she always wanted to be in his arms. Watching their bond only deepened my appreciation for the life we had and the love that still surrounded us. Then, just over 4 months ago, I gave birth to our second son. That pregnancy was anything but smooth. I was diagnosed with preeclampsia and spent the last 2 months on strict bed rest. It was a frightening time. I worried constantly about both my health and our babies. But Chris was extraordinary throughout. He managed everything, from running the household to making sure I was comfortable and emotionally supported. His reassurances, his gentle reminders that we'd get through it together, carried me through the hardest days. Chris never left my side during doctor visits or emergencies. It wasn't just about the baby. It was about making sure I felt secure and loved. Fortunately, despite all the complications, our little boy was born healthy. Today he's 4 months old, and every time I look at him, I see so much of Chris reflected in his features. His eyes, his smile, even his expressions feel like a tiny mirror of his father. That resemblance fills my heart with gratitude and love. Things seem to have settled into a peaceful rhythm. I had put my past mistake behind me, and life felt full with our 3 wonderful children. Chris and I had found our footing again. But then, 2 Saturdays ago, that sense of peace was disrupted. It started when Chris asked to talk privately. His parents were visiting, so they offered to keep an eye on the kids. We stepped into our bedroom, and from the moment we sat down, I could sense something wasn't right. The tension was unmistakable. I could see in his eyes that something serious was coming, though I had no idea what it could be. He began quietly, "Linda, I need to tell you something." His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that made my heart pound. "A few months ago, I had all 3 of our kids tested for DNA," he said. I froze in place, unable to process his words. "What? Why would you do something like that?" I asked, my voice thin and bewildered. Chris looked directly at me, as if preparing himself for what would come next. But he didn't reply right away. Instead, he continued speaking, his tone disturbingly calm. "Our daughter isn't mine." The blood seemed to drain from my body all at once, leaving me frozen in place. My brain couldn't process what I had just heard. I stared at him in disbelief, mouth slightly open, gasping for breath as though the air had suddenly disappeared from the room. My chest tightened painfully, and everything around me started to blur and spin. I felt like I was seconds from fainting. I wanted to scream, to ask questions, to demand explanations, but my voice was gone. My thoughts were a jumbled mess. I couldn't piece together his words. I just sat there paralyzed, overwhelmed by the revelation he had dropped so effortlessly. He told me not to deny it or say anything at all because he already knew who the biological father was. His voice remained cool, clinical, as if he were reading a prepared statement. You should reach out to him for support, he added. I won't be the one doing it anymore after we divorce. I couldn't even register what was happening. I collapsed onto the bed, buried my face in my hands, and sobbed like never before. My chest heaved with every painful breath, and my heart felt like it was being torn apart. Chris knelt beside the bed, now feeling like a stranger, and slid a folder from beneath the dresser. Without saying a word, he handed it to me. What is this? I managed to ask, my voice barely audible, my mind still spinning. Open it, he replied. His steady, emotionless voice made my blood run cold. With trembling hands, I opened the folder, and there they were. Divorce papers. My fingers shook so hard I could barely hold the pages. My cries grew louder, more desperate, and I struggled to catch my breath between the sobs. Chris didn't react. He stayed still, distant, like I was invisible. His indifference only made my own anguish more unbearable. Eventually, I choked out a question through the tears. How did you find out? He met my eyes with a blank expression. That's none of your business, he answered flatly. I stared at him in disbelief. But how long have you known? I asked, voice quivering. Longer than you think, he replied. I didn't say anything because of your condition. But now that you've recovered and the baby is healthy, I'm finished. Each word struck me like a blow. He wasn't just walking away, he had already emotionally left long ago. Trying to hold on to something, anything, I asked, do your parents know? He nodded, his expression unreadable. Yes. They knew the moment I did. It crushed me. His parents, especially his mother, someone I had always felt close to, had been aware all this time and never breathed a word. Since that moment, I've spiraled into a deep and painful depression. I've pleaded for forgiveness, tried every approach I could think of to make him reconsider, but he won't budge. He refuses to even let me explain. He told me plainly, I don't care what your reasons were. I'm not staying married to someone who cheated. Now he talks about wanting the divorce to go smoothly, wanting us to remain amicable for the kids' sake. But the way he says our 2 kids makes it clear he's already emotionally detached from our daughter. As far as he's concerned, she's no longer his responsibility. That thought alone breaks me more than I can describe. Just the other day, in a moment of pure frustration, I blurted out, how can you just walk away from your daughter like that? But before he could answer, the weight of my words hit me like a ton of bricks. I immediately took them back, voice shaking. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that, I whispered as tears welled up again. I'm just so overwhelmed. I know I've made terrible mistakes and I own them. I do. But I still believe in us. I want our family to be whole again. His eyes remained hard, his tone unmoved. You should have thought about that before sleeping with someone else. And he wasn't wrong. Deep down, I knew that. I had shattered everything we had and no apology or promise could fix that. For now, Chris still lives under the same roof, though he's moved into our son's room and sleeps in the spare twin bed. Each night, I hear them talking, sharing stories, laughing, and it cuts deeper every time. I feel the space between us expanding, growing wider with every passing moment. I try not to listen too closely, but their connection is impossible to ignore. It constantly reminds me of the life we had and what I may have lost for good. Other than that, little has changed. Chris continues being a devoted, caring father to the other kids, just like he's always been. And that way, he's stayed exactly the same. And there are moments, brief, fleeting moments, where I almost believe there's still hope. That maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back. But then, like a cold slap of reality, he'll ask, have you found a lawyer yet? And whatever tiny bit of hope I'd been clinging to shatters all over again. Needless to say, I'm in full panic mode and I'm willing to do anything to save my marriage, anything to make things right again. For now, I'm just taking each day as it comes, holding on to the hope that somehow we'll find a way to navigate through this. To me, Chris is and always will be our daughter's real father. He's the one who raised her, the one she adores, and he returns that love completely. Even after the truth surfaced, he never treated her any differently. She is his daughter in every way that matters, and he's remained devoted to her, despite the breakdown in our relationship. Chris, however, has been urging me repeatedly to get legal counsel and reach out to the biological father, insisting that he must take responsibility. But I can't bring myself to do it. I won't. Chris is her dad, and I won't pull another man into our world. My daughter doesn't deserve that kind of upheaval. She needs stability, and Chris provides that. Not the other man. Then something happened that left me stunned. Chris took a step I never saw coming. He contacted the business owner whose company had done the renovations on our home and told him everything. That man turned out to be the father of the man I had the affair with. My heart sank the moment Chris shared what he had done. I felt a wave of dread. This wasn't how I wanted things to unfold. Everything was now exposed. When the owner learned the truth, his anger toward his son was palpable. He called Chris directly and offered a heartfelt apology, practically begging for forgiveness. He assured Chris that he would hold his son accountable and see to it that financial support was provided for our daughter. Even though I felt deeply ashamed, part of me was relieved to see someone finally stepping up. The owner even reimbursed Chris for all the renovation expenses, a surprisingly large sum. I was overwhelmed, unsure how to process any of it. Soon after, the biological father's lawyer began reaching out. Calls came in, voicemails stacked up, all pushing for a DNA test. I ignored them all, trying to avoid reality. But today, a certified letter from the lawyer arrived. My hands trembled as I opened it. It demanded I contact her immediately and warned that if I didn't respond within 7 days, they would proceed with a paternity challenge in court. I was in disbelief. I couldn't accept that this stranger might soon be invading our lives and tearing our family apart. After speaking with Luke's attorney, the man from the affair, I scheduled a DNA test for my daughter this coming Wednesday. I never imagined my life would come to this point. I even asked the testing service if they could use the previous results from Chris's test, but they said it wasn't possible. When I told Chris about the upcoming appointment, his only response was a cold, "Good." It hurt to hear him sound so distant, but I understood. He's trying to protect his heart. He pretends not to care, but I know better. I see the love in his eyes when he plays with our daughter, the gentle way he holds her. That love hasn't faded. His pride is what's in the way now. He doesn't want to be the one footing the bill for another man's child, and I can't blame him for feeling that way. Then an idea surfaced in my mind. What if there was a way to make this all work? Suppose we could come to an agreement where the biological father provides financial support but relinquishes his parental rights to Chris. That might take the burden off Chris, allowing him to still be her father without feeling used or misled. Maybe, just maybe, this could offer a path forward, one where we remain a family, even with all the complications, once the DNA results are in. But things only continued to spiral out of control. The biological father of my middle child took legal action, requesting visitation rights while awaiting a custody hearing. When I learned that the judge approved supervised visits, I felt a flicker of hope. The court emphasized that Chris, being the legal father, maintained custody rights unless he willingly gave them up. I clung to that possibility, desperately hoping Chris would have a change of heart. That evening, I sat down with him, nervous and hopeful, and tried one last time to reach him. But he calmly explained that his attorney had already begun negotiations with the biological father's legal team. I begged him not to go through with it. I pleaded, "You're her father. She needs you." His reply was steady and unwavering. "I love her, Linda. I do. But this is the right thing for everyone. It's the only way forward." Tears spilled down my cheeks as I continued to plead. "Please don't let him into her life. I don't want that man near her." Chris just looked at me, eyes filled with a painful finality, and said, "You should have thought about that before you cheated, Linda. This is the consequence. Please, just please let me try to make it up to you." I told him I'd hand over every single child support check. He could have all of it and use the money however he wanted. But when I made the offer, he stared at me, his eyes filled with anger. "Are you actually serious?" he asked, visibly stunned. I nodded, hoping desperately that he'd see how far I was willing to go to make things right. Instead, he shook his head slowly, a look of disgust on his face. "You're not well," he said quietly before turning away. Eventually, my husband did something I never thought he would. He relinquished all of his parental rights. That was a line I never imagined we'd cross. Now the biological father pays child support and has 1/4 custody of our daughter. It was a scenario I had dreaded, one that I feared would tear everything apart, and yet I was powerless to prevent it. The whole situation feels surreal, like I'm trapped in an ongoing nightmare. Meanwhile, Chris appears to be at peace with it all, almost as if he's relieved. Our final divorce hearing is set for the first week of next month. The days leading up to it feel like a relentless countdown I can't ignore, even though there's nothing left unresolved. I've already accepted every term he proposed: division of property, the custody arrangements, everything. At this point, there's nothing left to debate. All that remains is to show up and let the final chapter close. A part of me still held on to hope, desperate and fading though it was. I wished, prayed even, that Chris might change his mind before we reached the courtroom. Maybe once the enormity of what we were doing sank in, he'd see that we could still rebuild what was broken. But each day that passes makes that fantasy harder to believe. I thought perhaps his financial freedom, no longer being responsible for our daughter, might lift a weight off his shoulders and make him rethink. But he hasn't shown even the slightest sign of that. Not a word. Not a look. Nothing. In less than 30 days, I'll be officially divorced. And with that comes a pain so deep it feels like part of me is slipping away with each step toward that courtroom. The stress, the regret, the overwhelming guilt, it's aged me in a matter of months. Sometimes when I catch my reflection, I don't even recognize the woman looking back. She seems tired, worn, and far removed from who I used to be. And while I feel like I'm crumbling, Chris looks lighter, almost like he's soaring. He's so unbothered, so unburdened, and I can't help but wonder if he ever feels any of what I do. Despite everything, I still love him. That hasn't changed, and I don't think it ever will. No matter how much pain I endure or how much time passes, there's a part of my heart that will always belong to him. I miss him more than words can express. It's like this deep, unending ache lives inside me, always present, always raw. I know there's no one out there who could ever fill the space he left. No one will ever make me feel the way he did. And the idea of even trying to replace him feels hollow. So I won't. I can't. I just hope that as time goes on, I can find a way to forgive myself for all that has happened and begin to heal from this constant sadness. I know I can't keep carrying this pain forever. Somehow I need to rediscover how to live again. But for now, the only thing I can do is keep pushing through, one day at a time, even when it feels like every step is a battle. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.